Platform Syfe has closed its Series C funding round at $80 million. Now, this includes a fresh Series C2 equity raise of $53 million, adding to the Series C1 raise of $27 million in August last year. With over $10 billion in assets under management and a customer base across Singapore, Hong Kong and Australia, Syfe is now doubling down on its India tech hub in Gurugram. Founder and CEO Dhruv Arora joins me now to break down the big bet on AI and what sets Syfe apart in a crowded wealth tech landscape. Dhruv, welcome to Startup Street. Now, with $80 million raised in Series C funding, taking your total capital raise to $130 million till date, tell us what is Syfe's current valuation and how do you plan to allocate the new funds raised?
Yeah, firstly, thanks for having me on the show. It's a great privilege to meet again and talk about the latest fundraise. As far as the business goes, we don't publicly disclose our valuation, but what I can share with you is that there's been a significant tick up both since the last round in both the valuation as well as the share price. Now, to your second question about where the assets where does the fundraise actually get allocated, we had announced last year that our core business, which runs out of Singapore, is actually already profitable. So a big part of this fundraise will actually go for regional expansion with specific focus both in Hong Kong and Australia. As you might know, last month, we successfully completed the acquisition of a listed platform called Self Wealth, which is one of the largest, discount brokers out in Australia. And one of the big focuses for us would be to do some of the good things we've done in Singapore across the whole gamut of wealth management and increase the offering at Self Wealth outside brokerage and make it a lot more holistic. So regional expansion, growth would be the key focus for us for the latest fundraise.
All right, and apart from expansion, I believe Syfe's India team has grown by 15% since last year, and a key portion of the funds will be exclusively leveraged to expand Syfe's engineering and product teams at its tech headquarters in Gurugram. Dhruv, what kind of talent are you looking to hire as you scale your tech and product stack?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? So I think for us, India has always been a very core part of the business. In fact, even when we launched the business in 2019, on day one, we had two offices. One was in Singapore and one was, in India, which was the engineering headquarters. And that's why actually when COVID happened, it was, we were already working remotely. So it was an easy transition. But to your question, we are a fintech platform. And I would say tech is more than fin in some ways, because two-thirds of our strength as it stands is within engineering and in product. So I think for us the focus would be to, of course, increase the headcount. We expect about a 40% increase in headcount in the next 12 to 18 months. But I think one thing that we would really want to do is be quite selective with the talent that comes on board. So we are not here trying to build 1,000-person, 2,000-person team, but a very high quality team which might end up at 100, 150 people. And I think that's the kind of talent that we would require, given we are dealing with money now in billions of dollars, right? So trust, security, quality of the product is table stakes for what we are building.
All right, and you mentioned tech. In fact, you're betting big on AI-assisted tools to enhance both internal operations and customer experiences. So tell us what's unique about your AI offerings and how are they redefining wealth management?
Yeah, that's such an interesting point, right? So maybe I'll break it up into what's happening internally and what's happening externally. I think internally, very evidently, it's leading to a much higher product delivery velocity. As a young company, if you say product velocity is probably our only moat, right? That's the only way we can somehow compete with the incumbents. So whether it's delivery of code, checking of code, or even something like design iterations, the speed of the way it happens and the pace at which it's happening, I think that has already improved. I still think we are just seeing the early sides of it. But what I expect to happen over the next couple of years is that each one of our, ciphers, as we call them, will become a lot more efficient in what they do, right? So internally, I think the key push is going to be on speed and iteration. Externally, actually, it's a lot more fascinating because that's something that impacts the end consumers. One thing that we've already started doing is, we focus a lot on education. And even 2 years ago, if we have hundreds of thousands of users, they would get one market wrap. This is what happened in the market overnight. Now, whether they had Apple stock or not, they would hear about what happened in Apple stock. Okay. Now, thanks to LLMs, you can actually get personalized to your portfolio. So you might not have Apple at all, and that news is irrelevant to you, whatever happens. Sure. But But what you have, that personalization, which almost leads to digital advice, I think that is where AI is going to play a big role, and it already is in its infancy. So that's an area we'll keep on doubling down over the next coming years.
All right. You've seen strong growth in Hong Kong. And like you mentioned earlier, you recently acquired Self Wealth in Australia. What synergies are you unlocking in these markets? And what is the kind of impact you hope to make going forward?
Yeah, so, we've had a very developed market strategy. So we started here in Singapore in 2019. And the kind of user we go is what we call the mass affluent user. So these users typically have anything between few $100,000 to a few $1 million of investable assets. Now, these users can't be catered by your conventional private banks, right? I mean, the fact is that it's not attractive enough to a private bank. So the only way this segment can be catered is digitally. And these three markets actually become quite interesting because almost 1 out of 2 adults fall into this, mass affluent segment. So that's why I think when we went to Hong Kong and now, of course, with Australia, now we've done something good in Singapore. We roughly count about 8% of all adults in Singapore are on the Syfe platform. And the goal would be that amount of product innovation, that amount of product localization, what we've done in Singapore. We'll do the same thing in Hong Kong and in Australia. A lot of focus will be on the pension and retirement products. And essentially, you have this gamut of a holistic wealth manager across these markets.
Well, on that note, it's time for me to wrap up our conversation. But Dhruv, many thanks for joining us on Startup Street, and wish you all the best for all your aggressive growth plans.
Thank you so much for having me.